Hello and welcome, this is Sarah. Today we are continuing our mod tutorials, and for today's episode we're gonna go and talk about loot actions. So before we dive into it, I want to say that we are currently working on the file that we've been working on for the past previous episodes. So yeah, it's the XML injector _ tutorial. If you have no idea what you see in front of you, please go check out the previous episodes until you reach this one. Or if you already understand but you have your own mods, that's perfectly fine as well. So for today's episode, we are going to talk about the loot actions. Also, one thing I want to mention is I clicked on the type over here to give you guys a better overview of the different types that we have here in this package file. But yeah, the loot actions are in the action tuning. And so, as you can see, we have two over here. We have the tutorials _ phone and the tutorials _ computer loot. So both of these loots currently only have buffs added to them, and I want to go over as well as what else we can add to loot actions, but we'll have a look at that later in the mod constructor 5. So what is a loot action? Well, a loot action is when something happens in game. Like after an interaction, for example, our sim could be cooking and then there is a fire that starts, or she is cooking and suddenly she gets a buff, or anything basically that happens in game. And there are two different types of loot actions, but today we're just gonna go over the very simple and basic loot actions. But today we're just gonna go over the very simple and basic loot actions. Let's go and have a look at the mod constructor 5 and create ourselves a new loot action. So here I have the mod constructor version 5 beta 10 open. It's the version I'm currently using. And I have opened our previous file of the buffs. So here I have the computer loot and the phone loot. And let me quickly show you. It's the phone loot here and then the computer loot over here. So in the buff episode we created a new buff. We can go and have a look at that like this. So yeah, here is the computer buff that I created. Now the loot actions, there are so many different things that we can do in this. So I'm just gonna go and continue further on the computer loot and then add some different things on the phone loot, and then we can have a look at it in game. So first of all, if you don't understand how we get into here, click on element, click on show all, and click on loot action set here. Make sure to give it a name. But because I've already done that, I'm just gonna go and continue on the computer loot and continue with the phone loot. So let's have a look at what we can actually do with the mod constructor 5. So we're clicking on add condition group, then we're gonna go right click and say add action. Now we're gonna go and click here on the open editor, and there are lots of different things that we can add. So we have the buffs. We can add a buff, we can add a persistent buff, we can add a random buff, we can remove buff, we can add career gigs, we can run another action set, what is quite useful if you want to use an action set from in-game. We can add a notification or a dialogue, we can add relationship bits or remove them. There are just so many things. Also, one that I use very often is add the traits and remove traits. For now, what I want to do is I want to go and create a notification or dialogue. So we click on this, and now we have the option to do a dialogue or a notification. I'm just going to go and leave it as a notification, and I'm going to fill in the title and the text. So for the title I chose computer notification, and then for the text I chose a new notification has popped up. Lana has become quite the mother. So I also wanted to use this over here. There's a slash and an N, and that basically means that this text will now be under this text over here. So for the primary icon I'm gonna go and say participant, actor, we leave that like it is, and the secondary I can go and say standard and import an image. So I want to use the same computer image, but I want to use not the buff version. So I'm going to click browse, found the image that I want, and I'm just going to go and say select. Now we can also add a audio string if you want, and that's basically the little sound that pops up when the notification pops up, but I'm just going to go and leave it as it is. Now, because I kind of feel like doing something more complex today, I'm gonna go and do another right click on the always run and say add another action. Then I'm gonna go and open the editor and I'm gonna say add trait. So yeah, let's go and add a trait. We can say create, and it basically just means create your own trait. But because I don't want to do that right now, I'm just going to go and say browse and choose a trait from in-game. So there are lots and lots and lots of traits. We can even change the walk style of the sim. We can add any trait that is available in the trait system, or we can go and find any reward traits. We can also add likes and dislikes, and that's what I actually wanted to go and add. So I'm using an all traits from the base game, so I'm just gonna go and click. So now I typed in likes. I'm going to find a like trait. For this one, we can do a color. I never really do colors. So let's go and say likes the color purple. So now when this notification pops up, also the trait add a trait likes purple is added. So to give more information, I'm going to add that in the text as well. So my text has changed to a new notification has popped up. Lana has become quite the mother. She now likes purple. Yeah, if you're a bit confused with what these words mean, you can go to the link down below, and there is a link to my Sims file share mod tutorials folder, and then you can download these Sims for modding. We've gone over this in the debuff tutorial. If you just still don't understand, go have a look and check that one out. Okay, now to make this even more complex than what it already is, instead of always run, I'm gonna go and change this to a trait condition. And this means that a sim will only get this pop-up if they have a certain trait. So I'm gonna go click say trait condition. And now we have a whitelist and a blacklist. And so for the whitelist, I'm gonna choose a trait. And in this case, we will go with, so I'm gonna go with dislikes the color purple. So now it means if my sim has the dislikes the color purple trait, the notification will pop up and it will add the likes the purple trait. But basically the whitelist means the sim needs to have this trait in order to get the notification and the add trait, because these are all added into the same situation, or how you want to call it. It also means that the sim, if they do the interaction, they will still get the buff even if they don't have this trait. Now, if you would have added the dislikes color purple to the blacklist, well, means that the sim will always get this notification and get the add trait unless they have the dislikes the color purple trait. I hope I'm explaining this in a way that you understand, and again, if it's too confusing, please let me know and I can do a more detailed video about that. So now I'm gonna go into the phone load and I'm gonna go and add another action. I feel like for this one we can do the dialogue, but it's a little bit different. Okay, so let me just fill in the text. I'm gonna leave the title blank for this one. So for this one, the text now says Alana has become quite the mother. And I'm gonna go and also add a condition. Okay, so let's say this one has a buff condition, and in this case I want to add that the dialogue will not pop up if my sim has the computer interactions buff. So first of all, if you are not using the same file that we use in the buff creation, you gotta go and export it and then open the file into Sims 4 Studios. But because I'm using the same file, I can go into here and select the computer buff. I'm going to go into data and I'm going to select the tuning ID and say copy. Now I'm going to go into blacklist and I'm going to go in manual input and put in those numbers and say select. I'm going to go and say export. So I've opened two files in the Sims 4 Studios. The left one is the one we've just been working on. This is with the action tunings and the loot action sets. And then the right one is the file that we've been working on for the last couple of episodes. So yeah, here we have the xosdr tutorials phone loot, what is the same as this one over here. And they have both the same numbers as in the tuning ID. I've used the same mod constructor file that I created the buffs in the buff episode. That's why they still have the same numbers. If they don't, then it's not that big of a deal. So what we can do now is we can go and say copy and copy all of this and then add it into here. Same for this one. We can just go and copy the whole thing and paste it out here. And then we do have to do all the same stuff with the text that we did in the buff tutorials. So yeah, you're gonna make sure everything is transferred correctly. Or what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go into here and find where the mod tutorials file is. And I'm gonna go and say duplicate. I'm gonna go in here and say paste. And this is now called copy. So I'm gonna go out here and then open a new project and open the copy project. Now I'm gonna go and delete everything that says the xosdr tutorial, so from the phone loot to the computer buff. Delete that and I'm going to go and click save. The reason I'm doing this right now is just because I want to test it, but also I copied this file because I don't want to break this file. So I do not actually recommend doing it this way, but I just want to test it and show you guys that this is also an option of how you can test your files. So I got to make sure that in the interaction into the outcome that it has the phone loot and then the phone loot that they have the same numbers. In my case they do have the same numbers, but yeah, you're gonna make sure that that has the same numbers, and then we can just get out of here, make sure to say save that one, and then I'm gonna go and copy both of these, go into my mods folder and paste both of them. And now we go into game and have a look. So here we are in game. And first of all, I want to show you that Lana does not have the any likes or dislikes. So we're going to go into the computer and choose the interaction. And the notification should not pop up because she has no, she doesn't, was it dislike or like? I'm sorry. Let me have a look. Computer. Yeah, it's because she doesn't have the dislike, the color purple trait. So only the buff should show up. Let's have a look and test it. So as you can see, the buff popped up and there was no notification added. So now we are gonna go into our phone, into the social tab and say the phone buff test. Now, because she has this dialogue, yeah, because she has the buff, the dialogue should not pop up. And it didn't pop up. Okay, so for now I'm gonna go and delete that and delete that. So now it says she dislikes the color purple. We're gonna go and do this interaction again. Let's say web, computer buff test. And as you can see, we got the buff and we got a computer notification. A new notification has popped up. Lana has become quite the mother. She now likes purple. And we gotta go and check that out. And it still says dislike purple. And you know what I just realized is because you cannot have a like and dislike at the same time. So this is my mistake. I'm quickly gonna go back into the mod constructor, and instead of saying the dislike the purple, I'm gonna remove that and go into browse. So I'm gonna change it to dislike the color blue, and then I'm gonna get out of game, and I'm gonna first export it. I'm gonna export it, and then I'm gonna go out of the game and add the file back into our mods file and do it all over again, and then we can have a look. So here we are back into game, and this is why it's so important to test your mods, is because you can make these little mistakes. I've already added the color dislike blue, so I'm gonna go back into on the computer and test the buff again, or the loot action again. Okay, so now everything should be correct. We got the buff, we got the notification, and we also now got the likes purple. So yeah, that was just a silly mistake that I made for using the same thing purple, but you cannot have a like and a dislike at the same time. Of course, I didn't think about that, but yeah, here we are. It worked. It worked. So now to test the phone, I'm gonna make sure to remove the buff, and I'm gonna go into the phone and say phone buff test. And now the dialogue did pop up, and it says Lana has become quite the mother. So yeah, that is it for today's episode. I hope you now kind of understand why we're using action loots. I only showed like a few options, but there are definitely a lot more options that we can do. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below if it was clear. If you need help with anything, on my Discord I have a separate channel for asking questions about the mod tutorials, so definitely go over there and ask me. I'm more than happy to help. Yeah, and if anything was unclear, you want a separate video about it, please let me know as well. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Okay, bye.